Well, Night in the Woods fans, it doesn't look like we'll have to wait much longer for the next game from developers Scott Benson and Bethany Hockenberry. Last week, the Glory Society surprised us all by announcing their next game, Revenant Hill, during the PlayStation Showcase event. It's been 3 years since we heard from the team, when they teased us with this image on Twitter, so it's great to finally get a real update on their progress. And though the game's trailer is only a minute long, between it and their post on the PlayStation blog and other posts they made across social media, they shared a wealth of information with us. So, as we wait for a release, what can we expect from Revenant Hill? First, let's start with the main character. As detailed on the PlayStation blog post, we'll be playing as Twigs, a cat who moves into a log in a graveyard after the barn he'd been living in burns down. After a nearby owl pulls some landlord shenanigans, Twigs is forced to pick up odd jobs to pay the rent. From there, things get more complicated for our feline protagonist, as they end up doing everything from growing crops, to communing with ghosts, witches, and demons, and building a community by accident. Ultimately, Twigs does all of this in the hopes that they can achieve their dream of becoming a fully licensed witch's familiar. But while Twigs is working to achieve this personal goal, it sounds like there will be a lot more going on around them. The blog post hints at something sinister working behind the scenes in the surrounding area, and that at some point, someone is going to need to push back against these forces. All in all, it sounds like an excellent setup to me, and definitely touches on the beautiful blend of existential and cosmic horror that so many of us enjoyed from Night in the Woods. With the way they describe putting down roots, climbing the ladder, and building a community, I'm getting some social sim vibes, like we've seen in games like Animal Crossing and the Persona series. Night in the Woods had some mild elements of this, like the various hangout segments with major characters, and the daily check-ins with minor characters, so it'll be interesting to see if Revenant Hill applies these same concepts on a larger scale. In Night in the Woods, we're rewarded for choosing to spend more time with Greg or Bee by getting a final conversation with our chosen companion at the end of the game. Now, imagine that, but stretched to an entire community of characters, where our decisions impact a larger group of people. Maybe our actions will lead to characters entering into relationships, forming families, or building lifelong friendships. Maybe the bonds we've created will impact the characters who accompany us at the climax, when we're forced to confront those aforementioned dark forces. You could think of it as a kind of evolution of how spending more time with Greg or Bee determines who protects May from Ide down in the mines. This is all just speculation, of course, but damn, that sure sounds cool to me. The blog also mentions that Twigs will learn to write, and jot down the things that they do in their journal, which certainly hints at a return of the beloved journal mechanic from Night in the Woods. I thought this was a pretty spectacular way of memorializing May's journey, so it's good to hear that it will be returning. In terms of gameplay mechanics, between the mention of selling goods, the implication of social sim mechanics, and the cobbling together of hexes and charms, I'd say it's a pretty good bet we'll be seeing plenty of minigames. The screenshots seem to show one off, which appears to be some form of tarot cards. Perhaps that's how we'll be casting magic in the game. In terms of story, it sure looks like we're going to be exploring themes like the plight of workers against their bosses, unionization, and the upending of traditional power structures. In the blog post, they even mentioned that in the game, you'll be striving to build an egalitarian community. The Glory Society is a co-op, after all, a company that runs without a boss, and thrives on collaboration. None of this should be a surprise to Night in the Woods fans, as those types of messages are all over the game. It's not as front and center as May's struggles, but it comes up frequently in the lore, from the Secret 2 Society to the story of Possum Massacre. It's a part of the game that I personally enjoyed, so I'm excited to see what they can do with a story that puts these themes front and center. As for the setting, the Glory Society's Twitter post says it's going to take place in 1919 in the lower north, which sounds like a general region more than a particular town or city. As someone who spent his college years in Pittsburgh, that name definitely has a western Pennsylvania feel to it, which checks out, as Night in the Woods was set in that region, and it seems to be a location that Scott Benson and his comrades feel comfortable creating in. 1919 is also an interesting time period, as it's a post-World War era that featured a lot of labor strife, including the infamous Battle of Blair Mountain, the largest armed uprising of workers in the history of the United States. So if the Glory Society is indeed going to explore the themes of workers' rights in greater detail, then they've definitely picked a perfect chapter of history in which to do so. In one of the promotional images, we see the characters who, I assume, will make up the community we'll be building. There's everything from human characters to skeletons, a seemingly sentient bear, and a few more animals who I'm guessing are probably other familiars. Based on this, it looks like our community will include a variety of supernatural beings and creatures other than just our patron witch. Sure looks like a fun group to be around to me, especially those skeletons. Their hat game is on point. Now, that's a ton of information, but one thing we didn't get is a release date. That's no big surprise these days. Spider-Man 2 still doesn't have one and it's supposedly just months away. I'm just a guy who makes YouTube videos in his man cave, so I'm not going to speculate about the release date at all, other than to say that I hope the Glory Society takes as much time as they need to finish it. They earned my trust with Night in the Woods, and as much as I can't wait to get a taste of what they're cooking up here, I'd much rather they work until the game has become everything they want it to be. Now, if you're still watching, then I'll bet you're probably wondering what my thoughts are on whether or not Revenant Hill is at all connected to Night in the Woods. Well, going back several years now, Scott Benson has been very clear on Twitter that their next game, which is now revealed to be Revenant Hill, would not be Night in the Woods 2, and is instead something entirely new. That hasn't stopped speculation, of course, and honestly, I can't blame anyone for believing otherwise. I mean, a lot of the community is not on Twitter, and the first shot of that trailer is just full of Night in the Woods references. My own personal theory is it's a true spiritual successor that remixes the things that worked from Night in the Woods into something fresh and original. But for more on that, you'll have to check out my next video on Revenant Hill, where I'll be doing a frame-by-frame breakdown of the trailer. Until then, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm hoping to turn this channel into a hub for Night in the Woods content and Night in the Woods-like games. And between Fall of Porcupine and Revenant Hill, it sure looks like we've got a lot of good stuff to look forward to, folks. Speaking of, you won't have to wait much longer for content from me, because on Sunday, I'll be posting a full Let's Play of Fall of Porcupine's demo, and my next theory video about the City Council and the cult is right around the corner. See you guys next time.